hopeful because human nature is conservative, and because conservatives understand human nature better than anyone else. And we should remain hopeful because Almighty God ensures that even the worst and most foolish and most revolting occurrences work towards the salvation of the world, and because if we are right, and since we are right, we shall eventually be vindicated. Conservatism without religion, Croatian conservatism without the Catholic religion, because all conservatism relates to particular historical identities and particular historical conditions, is meaningless and hopeless. And the second point relates to culture itself, which is obviously our common concern. Culture, I suggest, is not to be regarded as an instrument. As soon as it is, it becomes not culture, but just another ideology. What distinguishes ideologies from ideas and philosophers is that ideologies are instruments of power. Now, culture can, of course, be understood in different ways and has indeed different meanings in different contexts. But when it is regarded as the totality of the values that operate within a given identity, including the highest kind of collective human identity, which is the state, in these circumstances, culture is almost always determined, at least historically, by religion. Now, looked at in another way, culture, in the sense of high culture, that's the work of the intellect, culture is what we do. It is a practice. And that's a word used and an idea often emphasised by the too little known British conservative philosopher Michael Oakeshott. I recommend his writing to you. By our writing, composing, painting, discussing, whatever, we contribute to the culture. We should be content with that. We should be proud to make our contribution to the culture. If our views attain acceptance and our friends gain positions of authority, that's good, but it isn't the main aim. By contrast, and despite such humility, which is quite uncharacteristic on my behalf, I can assure you, we do not need to be at all restrained when it comes to demanding the cleansing of destructive forces propagating monopolies of false ideas from positions of political or cultural authority. Communism as a totalitarian force cannot be tolerated, and communists should long ago have been lustrated from all important state and official institutions. Now that sounds rather illiberal, though it's not in fact tolerant to tolerate the intolerable, merely stupid. And indeed my fourth point is about liberalism. Some conservatives today claim that the old battle against the left has been overtaken by a battle against liberalism. And some even relish the fact. Now, I understand the thinking of this, but I strongly disagree. You see, it sometimes comes down to a matter of the meaning of words, but also, I think it also comes down to a matter of misunderstanding. Now, what is true is that conservatives are not only interested in liberty, because we understand that there are many good things that can coexist with quite limited liberty. Religion, which I've mentioned, family life, friendship, all sorts of good things. So conservatives are certainly not just libertarians. Certainly not libertarians who believe that almost all coercion is immoral. Conservatives believe that order, including public order, has to be upheld, and they think that the state has to do it. But they're still very interested in liberty. Why? They dislike concentrations of power. Why? Negatively, the answer is that we distrust the effects of fallen human nature when it is uncontained. And we understand also, more practically speaking, the inevitable failure of planners, which comes from a lack of information, whether they're planning the economy or even worse, when they're trying to plan society. More positively speaking, a belief in the need for a space in which civil society can flourish is a conservative belief. Because conservatives are not just interested in economic liberty. We're interested in freedom of worship, freedom to educate our children as we wish, freedom to follow our consciences. All of these things are very important, and we should never forget their importance. But again, any conservative who underrates the importance of economic freedom is, I think, making a big mistake. Why? Well, first of all, without economic freedom, all the other freedoms are ultimately at risk, particularly the freedom to own private property and to dispense with your money as you wish. Secondly, the free economy, capitalism, uniquely permits what Milton Friedman calls cooperation without coercion, referring indirectly to Adam Smith's invisible hand and so on. Within the right economic framework, self-interest works automatically in favour of the common interest. This is an extraordinary, quasi-miraculous fact, but it is true. Through competition and the price mechanism, the wants of society are satisfied automatically, continuously, efficiently and cheaply without government interventions. And as Hayek points out, this process leads to what he calls, and I think this is a very significant concept indeed, that both those who call themselves conservatives and those who call themselves liberals, libertarians or whatever should understand and remember. Hayek points to what he calls the concept of a spontaneous order, and it extends far beyond questions of the price of tea or foreign holidays. Now, the fact is that institutions and habits develop through a long process of trial and error. And this process allows society to meet challenges that no one could have foreseen or planned for. And finally, of course, the free economy creates economic growth. And really, I don't see why as conservatives we should be at all apologetic about welcoming it and wanting more of it. And this was understood by Anglo-Saxon conservatives much better than by continental right-wingers. And it's worth remembering that Edmund Burke, basically the founder of the Anglo-Saxon style of conservatism, was a great friend of Adam Smith and agreed with him about the economy. And cultural conservatives should remember that only Western society managed to create, through its values and institutions and other circumstances, only Western society, our society, the society that we built and that we're part of, and that we inherit what we have from, only Western society managed to create sustained economic growth because of beliefs which turned out to be true. Well, within liberalism, there's been a kind of civil war going on. And at the roots of liberalism, there are all sorts of confusions and inadequacies. And anybody who obviously reads, let's say, John Locke is bound to be able to distinguish those, and even more those who came after him. But I think that the problem that we have with liberalism at the moment is best understood as I say, a kind of civil war within liberalism itself, which took place after the fall of the Berlin Wall and not the end of communism, but at least the end of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. And the American scholar John Fontaine has suggested that the particular kind of liberalism which came out on top, the sort of liberalism that is represented by Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, George Soros, and closer to him, Vesna Pusic, and unfortunately, I'm afraid it seems Mr. Andrej Plenković, that this style of left-wing globalism is perhaps best described as transnational progressivism. And I think that's quite good for two reasons. It's transnational, and this is an important